Andy with the Deplorable General here. I'm coming to you tonight with a movie review. A movie that I watched last night that it's gotten some really terrible reviews, and I wanted to share my opinion on it and some of the thoughts that I had on it. Okay, the movie that I sat and watched with my wife last night is Songbird, and it's an hour and 30 minutes, not too long. I thought it was a decent length. It came out on December 11th, and it is a Michael Bay film. Okay, so Michael Bay, he's done Transformers, Bad Boys, Pearl Harbor, Armageddon, The Purge, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a bunch of really like top tier, top shelf movies. It had some really good actors in it. Some actors that aren't necessarily the highest caliber, but really like well-known actors and actresses. Alexandria Daddario, she was in Baywatch, San Andreas, Hall Pass, Rampage, Percy Jackson. We have Demi Moore. Everybody knows Demi Moore. Striptease, G.I. Jane, Ghost, A Few Good Men, Charlie's Angels, Forsaken, Bunraku. We had Craig Robinson. He's the black guy that was in Hot Tub Time Machine, Pineapple Express, This Is the End, The Office, Knocked Up, real funny guy. We had Paul Walter Hauser. He played Richard Jewell in Clint Eastwood's movie Richard Jewell. Great actor, great movie. He's the guy that works at the department store in Cobra Kai, the TV show. He's in Super Troopers 2. We have Bradley Whitford. This is a guy that you would, if you saw his picture, if you don't know it by name, you would recognize him for sure. He was in The West Wing, Get Out, Billy Madison, Cabin in the Woods, The Call of the Wild. I mean, some decent actors and actresses in this movie, and yet they only got 10% on Rotten Tomatoes and 4.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Okay, so 10%, you know, it's 1 out of 10. Basically, it's the worst rating that you could possibly get. Now, I typically don't give too much credence to these critics because they always seem to have some sort of agenda, right? At least I think. And I've seen movies that they've trashed that I thought were good, and movies that they've said were good that I thought were terrible. So this movie, Songbird, the premise of it is that there's this virus, COVID-23. It's got like a 57% mortality rate. Only like 2 or 3% of the population is immune to it. They call these people munies, and they're pretty much the only ones that are able to travel freely about the city. This takes place in Los Angeles. So the only ones that are able to travel freely are these munies, or like the government, right? So the main character is one of these munies, and they live very lonely lives because it's so few of them. So they can't have contact with anybody because they could be carriers. So they don't want to get anybody else sick, so they can't have contact with anybody. Everybody else who's not immune, they are forced under law to stay in their house at all times. It didn't go quite into like how you would get your food and groceries and things like that. But if every day you scanned yourself with your cell phone and on your phone, it would tell you if you had symptoms of the virus or if you had the virus. And if you did, the sanitation department would come and they would take you away to these Q zones, which are like FEMA camps, these big ghettos, you know, people living in tents, millions of people, terrible living conditions, and they say that's pretty much where you go to die. So main character's girlfriend is not immune. Main character is immune. He's a package delivery guy. He goes around town delivering packages. They put the packages in these little boxes, and UV light sanitizes them, and then the person who's receiving them will open the box on the other side and take the package out. I thought that was kind of neat. So the main character's girlfriend is not immune. She's locked in her apartment with her grandmother, and the sole means of communications for most people is video chat, you know, Zoom. Now, this movie was put together in a short period of time. It obviously didn't have a massive budget, but I thought the cinematography was really good. The acting was really good. The plot was decent. I don't want to give too much away, but basically, what this guy is trying to use the black market to acquire a immunity bracelet for his girlfriend, and he has to go through all this stuff. And now, some things that I found very interesting with it. Okay, so first of all, was at the very beginning, as soon as the movie comes on, they're like talking, they're showing like YouTubers talking about this thing, and this one YouTuber right off the bat says, well, it doesn't say YouTube, so it could have been any platform, I guess, but I just assume. But the guy says, "New year, new strain," and I thought that was just an interesting thing to start the movie with. An interesting quote to start out the movie with was, "New year, new strain." So the idea that the people that were immune were kind of almost demonized. You know, they were kind of the bad people. They were like the lepers almost. That was really interesting to me. Of course, 99% of the people, they did exactly what they were told, right? They stayed in. They didn't break the law. They stayed in because they were in fear for their life. When this virus in the movie was actually dangerous. Most people were dying from it, right? Like over 50% of the population were dying from the virus. So it was certainly a lot more credible than COVID-19. A lot more dangerous. So, but of course everybody stayed in. There was nobody out on the streets, and they showed scenes of the main character riding his bike all over the city, and it was a ghost town. There was nobody anywhere, not even other munis. So, I thought that the plot was decent. Certainly wasn't anything profound about the plot. There wasn't a whole lot of plot twists or, you know, things that popped out as unexpected, or it wasn't too inherently deep. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good movie. It had a pretty clear beginning, middle, and end. And I think that the story was told pretty well. I think we can relate, especially because I think a lot of us are looking at this overall COVID-19 situation and think of how much of a joke it has become. Not that the virus is a joke, not that the virus isn't real. It is. People are dying from it. And people get terribly sick from it. It's a very small percentage of people get very sick from it. And I'm not here to talk about that, but a lot of us view this whole COVID-19 thing. It's really become kind of a joke. It's been politicized, and there's an agenda behind it, and you can't believe anything you see or read or hear. And a lot of us are just sick and tired of it. However, one of the things that we can kind of, people of my mindset at least, can see is that, like, where we're at is going to lead somewhere, because where you're at always leads to somewhere. That's just the nature of where you're at. I mean, we're constantly moving in a direction, right? I was going to say forward, but we're not constantly moving forward. We're constantly moving in a direction. So whatever's happening now is going to be used for something else down the road. That's just how things work. Things that have happened in the past have been used to influence what's going on right now, currently. So, so we can see that what's happening now is going to go somewhere. It's going to evolve into something, right? That's just, we can make a logical assumption that that's what's going to happen. And one of the things that this movie did for me is it gave a pretty decent picture of what that could look like, and it's a slippery slope kind of thing. It's an extreme view of what it could look like, but we're already seeing here this new strain that came from the UK supposedly, showing up on each coast, in California and in Florida. This new strain that spreads quicker and easier. You know, it's for almost a year now we've constantly heard, well, we just don't know anything about this virus. We don't know anything about the virus. It's just there's just so much unknown. We don't know anything. But yet they knew enough to rush a vaccine through. And now they're not gonna. If they didn't know anything about the original virus, then the new strain, I can't imagine that they're gonna know anything about. So it's just gonna be a whole nother wave of hysteria and fear. I could see things. I could see this slippery slope that we're on, kind of going in that direction. Overall, I think it's like $20 on YouTube. I don't think I'd pay $20 to watch it on YouTube. I did not watch it there. I watched it somewhere else, so worth the watch. I enjoyed it. I thought overall it was a good movie. Some of the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, some of the stuff they had to say was, this Michael Bay produced travesty exploits the coronavirus epidemic for thrills. That's right, for thrills. Songbird isn't very good, which you might expect for something thrown together so quickly. That's a good point. I mean, it was thrown together quickly. Because of coronavirus, there weren't more than a couple actors or actresses on screen at any given time. So there wasn't this major production going on, and it was put together really quick. But that being said, I thought it was good. It eventually converges in a way that feels at once hopelessly contrived and pitifully narrow. And I can kind of see it. Like I said, it wasn't very deep. It wasn't like this really deep story. It was it was definitely a beginning, a middle, and an end. There was a hero. There was a villain. The villain was a little kind of a caricature of this like evil villain type person in our society, but I didn't mind him. I didn't find him too unbelievable. Somebody put in that role, a role of power. Let's see. This movie isn't going to make anyone feel better because it's lame. Even if one sets aside all potential moral arguments about the very existence of Songbird, it's still just really bad. Okay, so like what moral arguments? We're living in a time that's like no one's ever experienced anything like it before in our lifetime, and somebody made a movie, basically showing how it could be worse, right? Like I don't think we have the news media playing off our fear and profiting off of our fear. Why can't somebody in Hollywood do it, right? I mean, that being said, I don't believe that this, in any way, shape, or form, was meant to drum up more fear in people. I think it was a movie that like everybody can relate to based off of what we're all going through right now, and he just built off of that. I don't see any moral arguments about him making this movie. Okay, so I'd recommend you check it out. The last thing that I'd like to just kind of point out, okay, I mentioned the quote at the beginning of the movie. The YouTubers, the guy had said, "New year, new strain." Okay, I thought it was an interesting quote. I thought then also that the title for the movie, Songbird, was also really interesting. Okay, I didn't find any reference to that in the movie itself. Okay. No part of the movie did the title Songbird apply to. So I started kind of Googling, right, and started looking up, and the only thing that I could really draw as my own conclusion. Now this is just the conspiracy theorist in me. Bear with me. I might be way off the mark here, but back in coal mining times, they would have the canaries, the songbirds, in the cages down in the mines with them, and if they'd be low on oxygen or there'd be poisonous gases in the mine with them, then the birds would chirp. They would die first, and you would be able to watch the songbird or listen for the songbird, and if the canary, and if it died or if it was making a bunch of racket, you knew it was time to get the heck out, right? Early warning device. The conspiracy theorist in me is curious if this is not Michael Bay's way of warning us that this is what's to come. You know, like I said, everything is leading to somewhere. I could see what's happening now leading to something like that. Is this what he's saying? Is he telling us that we should expect something like this to come? I don't know. Maybe. It's something to think about. What's the takeaway from that? What are you going to do if it does? If we have a strain that really is killing 50% of the population, are you going to be more inclined to give up your liberties to stop that? Or to not get it and die yourself? I don't know. I think right now it's really easy to say that I'm not willing to give up my liberties for a virus that's only killing like 0.07% or whatever the crazy low number is, right? Like, it's easy for me to say, no, I'm not willing to give up my liberties for that small percentage of people that are dying from coronavirus, right? That number is 50%. You know, I would think of things a little bit differently. And I think that that's something that we have to consider. We have to think of, where do we draw the line? I don't know. I think it's different for everybody. I think if you have kids, it's different. I think if you are older, it's different. If people depend and rely on you, it's different, right? But I think that we all have to really kind of think ahead on this and say, okay, we see what's happened now this past year. Moving forward, if this situation evolves and becomes more intrusive and more chaotic, what are we willing to do? And what are we willing to not do? It's something that I think that we have to think about. And I think that if nothing else, I think that this movie, Songbird, gives you a reason or an excuse to start thinking about that. If this situation gets worse than what it is, which, folks, hadn't gotten better yet, how are we going to respond to it? How are you going to respond to it? How am I going to respond to it? So, anyway, Songbird, if you get the chance, check it out. Like I said, I wouldn't pay $20 to watch it, probably, but I thought it was a pretty good movie. I would definitely say it's something worth sitting down and watching on a Friday night with the wife or whatever. All in all, decent movie. If I had to rate it out of 10, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. Certainly wouldn't give it a 10, but I absolutely wouldn't give it a 1 out of 10 or even a 4 out of 10. I'd probably give it a 6. So, hope you found this informative. Hope it gave you a little bit to think about. If you get a chance to watch Songbird, go ahead and check it out. I'm Andy, Deplorable General. Over and out.